So parameters, I know everybody's used them a little bit here and there through the course. Parameters are a way that we can make the report just more dynamic, more lets the user interface with the data a little bit differently. Parameters versus filters. Filters is more like a where clause, like in SQL, where parameters is more like an if-then statement. So they're a little bit different, and both are very useful. Filters are a little more straightforward in what they do. Parameters, there's all kinds of use cases that we can use them for. So let's just use a basic one. I'm sure everyone has done this, but just to give an example. So a lot of times when we're building a dashboard for a customer, sometimes they want different measures that they can cycle through. And let's just use an example of sales and profit, right? So sometimes users want to be able to have metrics that show sales, but maybe they want the exact same graphs, but also compare in profits. And depending on how you approach that, you may have to create two separate tabs for each instance, or multiple charts for each instance, right? Where instead we can use a parameter to filter back and forth between the two. And this is all going to come down to the customer's needs and what they want to see and how they want to see it, right? But so just to give you an example here, let's do something simple. Let's do market and then sales, right? So I can't do sales and then just add profit on here, or we get, we can do maybe a dual axis, which isn't really practical, or you can do something like this, which is a shared axis. But this takes up more real estate, so it's not really practical. So instead, we can create a parameter to change between the two. So let me duplicate that real quick. Let's create a parameter. This is going to be real simple. And also, I've got my Tableau updated, so the interface is a little bit different, so bear with me. So I'll just call this one sales or profit. Just keep this simple. And this will be a string. And we'll do a list. And we'll call one sales. And we'll call one profit. And you could also do like quantity or something, or discount as well. We're just going to do sales and profit. Keep this nice and simple. Now, do take note if you are using all lowercase or you're using all caps, so the first letter is caps. So when I call this into a calculation, it does matter how you spelled it out. Now, parameter in itself doesn't really do anything. So I create this parameter and I go to show parameter. And if I do sales and profit, you can see it doesn't do anything. So the example I always use is a parameter is kind of like a light switch. You can have it flip it on or off, but you need to hook it up to something for the electricity to go through it for it to actually turn on the light, right? So to do that, we use a custom calculation or a calculated field. There's actually other things we can use too, but for this, we're going to use a calculated field. And just call this sales profit. And we'll just say if our parameter, sales or profit, and parameters show up in purple in the calculation. So sales or profit equals, we're going to do a string, sales, and sales, our measures will show up in orange, and also so will dimensions. And then you can do else or else if, else profit. So you could write it this way, or you could do, actually, we'll just leave it that way. Since there's only two options. Now, if there was a third option like quantity, you would have to write an else if. So you would do else if. I don't remember. Oops. So you could write it that way too. It's same. Doesn't matter. So this is what I'm talking about here. So make sure you're spelling it the same way that you put it into the parameter string earlier, or it will not work. And I think that should be good. All right, so leave that for just a second, just in case somebody's catching up. Okay, I'm click OK. So now I'm going to remove both these measures here. We do sales or profit. So now I should be able to cycle through. You can see that they change. Also, I may be able to, be the best way to do this. Oh. Yeah, so you could also, just so that the user knows that things changed. So first, let's sort this. So that looks good. But the user may not just visually, they know they changed the parameter, but they may not know that it just doesn't stand out. So you can drag your sales or profit parameter into color, just so that when they change it, it changes color so that they understand something else happened. So visually, as dashboard developers, we need visual cues to just make things easier to interpret. So just a small thing. We can clean this up. We can drag sales and profit into label. And we can hide this if we want. Just like that. And of course, you can customize the colors too if you want. You can change it to whatever you like. Let's do purple. All right, so that's a very simple use case for a parameter. And again, if I had a dashboard with, 5 or 6 visualizations, and I don't want to create a separate tab with the same visualizations for another measure, this is a simple way to alternate back and forth, right? All right. So let's move on and let's do, we can use parameters to allow the customer to be flexible with maybe a top and bottom X or N or whatever variable you want to use. So usually maybe a customer does top 5 or top 10 or something like that, but maybe we want to give them the ability to define the top amount that they want to use, so they can change it on the fly, right? So we can also use a parameter for this. So let's create another tab. I'll name this tab real quick. Sales profit. This will be our top bottom. So let's do like product. And I'm not building it quite yet. I just want to show. And we can sort these. I can drag this profit here. So, you can show the whole thing. What did I do there? Okay. Had a little lag there. I don't know why I was doing that. So you can see we have all the items on here. This isn't very practical for the user, at least not in this visual way. But you can see that it goes from highest to lowest, and we have the top in blue, profitable, and then the unprofitable in the orange here, right? So we can drag this label too. But maybe the customer just wants to see the top and bottom end, so to speak. So what we can do is first we can create a set. First we need to create a parameter. So let's first create a parameter here, and we'll just call this top end. This will be an integer. So we're going 1 through 10 or 1 through 20 or whatever. I'm gonna do a range, and we can check all these, and we'll just do 20. I'll leave that for just a second. Okay, so click OK. And I'm actually going to duplicate that one and do a bottom end here. So edit, everything's going to stay the same. We're just going to name this bottom here. Yeah, just a second. All right, we'll click OK. I'm going to show both of these. And again, they're not going to do anything quite yet, but we can show them. I am going to set them to, let's do 10 on each. Okay, now we're going to create a set. So we're using product names. We're going to create a set on product name. So let's find product name here. Right here, right click it, go to create, and then you have set right here. Click OK. Then here we're going to do a top by field. I'm going to select the top N here. So you see it defaults to top 10. Instead, I want it to call my parameter. So I'm going to feed the parameter number through here instead of having a static number, just like that. And we shall do, what do we do? Profit. Yeah, we got profit here. And I believe that is sum, and I'll leave that up so everybody can copy real quick. All right. Nina, so you can just let me know. We'll continue forward. And we're going to duplicate this and essentially do, actually, I didn't name that very well. Let's call this top end. Then I'm going to duplicate this and do the same for bottom. And we're going to do the top, use bottom end. Make sure you change just the bottom. I made the mistake a few times of forgetting to toggle this as well. So we have by field bottom, sorted bottom by our bottom end parameter, broken out by our profit, the sum of our profit. So leave that for just a second too. All right, click OK. And one cool thing you can do with sets is you can combine them. So let's see. I'm going to hold my control key. So I'm going to click the bottom end and hold my control and click the top end. I'm going to right click and create a combined set right here. And click that. And we're going to do an inner join because we only want the, I'm sorry, not inner join, the full outer join. We have top end and bottom end. That's perfect. Top end, bottom in. And don't need to touch anything else here. Leave that for just a second. That looks okay on that. Now all we need to do is apply this to our filters. Just like that. Just like that. It consolidates everything to what we defined as what we want to see. And now we can allow the user to see the bottom end changes. And actually, let's rotate this so it actually makes more sense. So now the user has a little flexibility to kind of see what's going on in their data. Maybe they want to focus more on the top, so they can shrink the bottom, maybe expand this out. I did set it to 20 as the max, but obviously you could set it to whatever you want. That would be customer defined. So that's how you make dynamic parameters. I'm sorry, dynamic top and bottom end. And I could also do my, what did I call that field? Actually, no, I'd have to reconfigure all these. But I could, if I wanted to, the sum, sales, and profit here, I could also put that in my columns as well, but I would have to go to each set and just change it to I would have to change it to sales and profit here as well. Not going to do that, but just give me an example. The sales wouldn't make, I guess it would make sense if the customers just wanted to see. They probably more want to see number of products sold, the bottom number and the top number as a count rather than the sales itself. But profit's more practical for users usually because they want to see where they're gaining money and losing money. Sales doesn't always equate to gaining money. You know, you could be selling products a lot, but if you're only making a $2 margin and profit, it's not much versus, you know, if you're making like a couple $1,000s on margin, you know, so it depends on the product. And again, it comes down to what the customer's looking for. So there's two examples. I got a couple more here. So another thing we can do, and this is actually one that I like that I've been using quite a bit lately. So we have drill down. So before I do the parameter, I'll just show typically how we would drill down. And there's two ways that we typically do. We can build a hierarchy. So let's just we could do state and city, or actually we could do category, subcategory. That would be a little bit better. So I'm just going to drag subcategory into category here, create a hierarchy. Is there anything else I could put in there? We'll just do one drill down. I think next week, there's a way that you can do multiple drill downs with this parameter. But just show you what I'm talking about. I'll add market too. I'll drag this into columns, and if I drag sales, and let's do a tablix here. That's just an example. So do market, and I can drill down this way, and then it goes to category and subcategory, depending on what the user wants. This is typically how we can drill in and out. Well, on a tablix, you can do a bar graph as well. So if you want to drill this in. The problem with this is it continues to take up a lot of real estate. And maybe we don't want to take up all this real estate. Maybe we just want to keep it really nice and compact. A lot of times when you're building dashboards, it's hard to squeeze everything you want. And sometimes you have the opposite issue where you just don't seem like you have a lot on there. Not having a lot's not necessarily a bad thing, but having too much and having it really busy can be a huge issue visually for the customer. So one way we can clean this up is we can use a parameter. And actually, before I share that, the other way we can drill down, or more really a drill through, we can create an action, right? So we can do, you don't have to copy me on this. I'll just do the category. Another way we can kind of clean up space. is we can create like an action. So bear with me a second. So go to dashboard, go to actions. And let me know if you want to follow along. I'm just showing this as a demonstration because the next part will follow along. So I'm going to add action. You can do filter or see, I think go to sheet dashboard 1. I'm not really worried about naming it. Target sheet on dashboard 2. Make a menu, click OK, click OK. So now if I click this, you see this little pop-up comes up. We can drill through to the other one and it will filter out on the way through, which is nice as well. You don't want to see. You can also do a tooltip, which is another way that we can do it. I'm just giving you some ideas here. So if you wanted to go to tooltip here, clean this out, we can insert, what was that, sheet 5. And if I hover over, you can do something like that. That needs to be cleaned up just because it's not really fitting in there. That's okay. This is another way that we can also keep it clean. So you have your hierarchy for drill down, you have your actions for drill throughs, you have your sub reports in your tooltips. But I'm going to show you the cleanest way that I've been using a lot lately. We'll just call this drill down parameter. First, we're going to create a parameter and we're going to make it empty. So let's create a parameter. We'll just call this empty parameter. Do make this a string. And we're actually just going to leave that blank. This will make sense here in a sec. Okay, let's click OK. So now again, we're gonna, this in itself doesn't do anything. I'm going to create a calculated field. Actually, let's create a bar chart first. So we'll use category and subcategory again since we're already using that. So we'll drag out. So category into rows, sales into columns, and we can sort this. All right, so now let's create our calculated field. And we're going to call this category subcategory. I'm just put SC for subcategory. Again, naming conventions are more important when it's front facing to the customer. Since we're just doing demonstrations, the names aren't super important, but do be conscious of what you're naming because these columns will pop up in the export if the customer chooses to export or if they're hovering over something. So make sure you use names that make sense. This is going to be if our empty string or empty parameter equals category, then show subcategory else category. And let's see, it likes that. That's fine. Basically, we're just layering these on top of each other. And when we use this in the actual sheet, it will all make a lot more sense. All right. You know, a second, let me know. I'm going to move forward. So now I'm going to drag this category, subcategory. I can't remember if I put it in front or beside, but let's find out. Also, we need to make sure both these are nested sort, because when I drill in, I don't want to drill in and then the subcategories be all out of order. I want to make sure it stays clean. So I'm just going to go into each one, go to sort, and just go to nested. And it's going to be descending. Okay. Close that. This should already be set up, but I'm going to do it too, just in case. Yeah, it's already nested. Okay. So now we're going to add what we call parameter action. Right. So I showed you an action earlier that showed the drill down. I'm sorry, drill through. Now we are going to go to our worksheet, actions, and we're going to add action, and we're going to do this change parameter here. It's a pretty nifty tool. There's lots of other things you can do with this. I might do a class on change parameters and change sets. You can also use the change set value to do the same thing. But the change set leaves a lot more blank white space, so it takes up a little more room. So it's not quite as clean. Let me click change parameter real quick, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to configure this action. We're going to leave it on select. We're going to do our target parameter as our empty parameter. So basically, we're creating an action that feeds through the empty string of the parameter that we define in our calculation. All right. And this calculation we're going to call right here. We do category, subcategory. And we can call this update empty parameter. We'll do that for just a second. All right, look okay on that. Click OK on that. And now if we click it, you can see it does this little drill down. Now for this, we can actually see how it's duplicated. Well, first let me explain. So when you click it, you can see it drills down and to just the category that we drilled into. It still has the other two categories there as well. I was trying to play around to see if they could hide both of those. I want to say you can, but I couldn't remember how to do that. But it's still fine. It's still very functional. Then you just click a bar again, and it will drill back out. Now, what we can do here is on category, we can hide from field labels. So just go to show header and uncheck it, and it will hide it. You can also hide these field labels as well. You can't take this out. If you take this out, it won't work. So if I pull this out here, well, actually, I'm sorry, it does work, but you can see what happens is when I click it, you see furniture and office supplies. So if I click technology, furniture and office supplies goes to the top, and it looks a little bit confusing about what's going on. So it mixes in the categories and subcategories together. But if I leave the category there, it will leave them in their own little boxes, and it will keep them at the bottom. So it's just more practical that way. Also, we can clean up the lines here. I'll do that in just a second. Also, what I like to do is take category. You can drag from over here. If you ever want to drag it from your shelf here, just hold the control key and drag it into color. So each one's its own color. So that way, when I drill in, you can see it keeps red, and it kind of makes it visually a little bit easier to keep them separate, right? We could probably leave the lines in between the actual categories just to have it broken out. And you can click through each one and it will cycle through. So the line is good for separation. You can clean up all these other lines. So I can show header, get rid of that, put cells in the label. That's usually a best practice to hide the axis, just because the axis can take up a lot of extra space. If I can keep it on the visualization, I will. And I like to remove extra lines. So if we want to right click in here and go to format, you can see really depends on how you want to break this out. But you can have You can see these lines right here disappear if I go to level and drill it out. I like to leave a little bit there just because it just visually helps to break it out. Let's see, I forget those 0 lines. Didn't do anything. Drop lines. Oh, I'm not even on the right one. I need to be on columns there. That's what it is. So if you can go to columns, you go over here to the far right to lines, go to columns, and just turn the grid lines off. You can see it kind of gets rid of that background lines. I'll leave these lines right here. You can get rid of the top and bottom lines as well, which I actually forget. I'll just get the lines. The formatting sometimes takes a little time. I think it's pane. Yeah, it's pane. So you go to row divider, go to pane, and take that off. So it took away my other lines. And that's too many lines, right? That's just a lot. Oops. There we go. That's what I want. Anyway, the lines are just preference. Just have these broken out. So anyway, so that's how you do a nice little drill down. I think that's pretty cool. I've been using that a lot in my visualizations recently. I like that it's very minimal, but very functional. Saves me a lot of real estate. Actually, we'll put that line back. All right, so that's that one. And then I have one other one to show. This one's a little bit more tedious. Also, I had a toggle button, but I don't have the proper stuff on my desktop. I wanted to actually have a toggle button that you can filter, but I don't have it on this loaded on this Tableau, so I'll bring that next time. But toggle buttons are very similar. Use a parameter action just like that, and you can have it toggle back and forth. So we'll do that probably in the next one as well. So this other one, we can create a dynamic table. So create another sheet. I'll just call this dynamic grid. And typically, a lot of times, I will say Tableau doesn't always do the best with grids. It's definitely made for more visuals. But sometimes you do need to create tablets. So I'm just going to create a quick example of, whoops, that's going to be too big there. Do markets, category. Right, so sometimes you have a grid and you want all these options, but you want to allow the user to change which ones on what axis so they can kind of slice and dice the data and see the relationships. It's, these don't connect the best because each kind of have their own box, but I'll show you the example we'll use here, make a little more sense. Again, bear with me, this one's a little more tedious, but it can be useful depending on the circumstance. Oh, there you go, category, subcategory. So if we wanted, maybe we want to change segment to category and category segments. In this way, however we publish it, that's how it's going to be stuck. But if we want the user to have the ability to change the order of all these, we can. So let's just do, first let's create a parameter. And we'll just call this select dimension 1. We'll make this a string. We'll make this a list, and we'll import this list from just use a few of these. You can add as many as you want. Maybe add 3 or 4 here so we don't make it too complicated. So we'll call this category. Make sure you spell things correctly. It is easy to misspell. We'll do market. Oops. Market segment. And also you do need to add, you need to add it in a, just so you can turn it off. And we'll have the default set to NA, so it doesn't do anything when you boot it up. Yeah, we'll just do 3. Usually I do like 4 or 5 just to show, but since this is a little more tedious, we'll just keep it simple here. So I'll leave that there for just a second. And click OK. I'm also going to duplicate this twice. So we'll duplicate it once, we'll duplicate it twice. We'll edit this, and we'll call this select dimension 2. Leave everything the same. Let's see. Let me see what dimensions we have here. Actually, we can add, I'm going to add ship mode. That adds a couple extra here. What's another good one? Maybe region might be a good one. And then do you can add whatever ones you want. Again, check the spelling. And I am going to have to take a screenshot of that because I'm going to forget. Yeah, I don't need to do this because y'all be copying off mine, but I'm just gonna take a quick screenshot so I don't forget which ones I've chosen here. Click OK. I'm actually going to duplicate that one, delete the first one. I can delete the other 2 actually. I'm going to duplicate this one twice. We'll name one of these dimension 1. Okay. And depending on how many you want, you could do 4, 5, and 6. We'll just do 3. Now we need to create a parameter for the measures. These are dimension parameters, but if we don't have anything in here where it says ABC, it's kind of hard to slice and dice and see the relationship, right? So let's do create another parameter. Select measure. And we could actually use the first parameter we built, sales and profit, as well, if we really wanted to. So also be a string. And we don't need an NA on this one because you have to have a measure in there for it to do anything. So we'll just call this discount. Choose a few. We'll do profit. Oops. Profit, sales. I think those 3 are fine. What other measures do we have? We'll do ship costs. I'll leave that up just a second as well. All right, I'm gonna click OK on that. Actually, I may need to come back and take a screenshot of those as well. Okay, so now let's create a calculated field. We need to create 3 calculated fields, but we get to duplicate these as well, so it won't be take too much here. So this will be dimension 1 header or selection or whatever you want to name it. And basically we're going to make a case statement. Case, select dimension 1. We'll do when. I need to screenshot here. So when, whoops, I'm just going to put it in the back. 1 second, guys. Sorry if that's shrinking a little bit. We just need the calculation here though. So case when, and then again, the spelling will be important here. You can do single or double quotes for strings in Tableau. So I'm going to do single quote category. And then we call the category here. Same thing when market and market when segment when whoops. And last one, actually no, we got 2 more. And then last one, we got to add our NA. Then we'll just do that empty string and then end it. Okay, so now we got that. Leave that for just a second. If you only chose a couple, whichever ones you chose to use, just put those in there. I'll leave that for just a second. Yeah, click OK. We're going to duplicate that twice as well. Duplicate, duplicate. Edit this copy here. We'll call this dimension 2. And make sure you change this to select dimension 2. Or it's going to be a lot of chaos on here if they're all doing the same thing. And click OK. Edit this. We'll call this 3. 3. I'll click OK on that. And then let me go to my measure here. And then let me take a little snip of this too, just to have it to remember. And then we'll create a calculated field for our measure. Very similar here. So we'll do measure header. And we'll do another case. Select measure when got a really short memory, guys. Discount. Then this time you have to wrap it in a sum, or you can do average or whatever. Maybe we'll do one average, just profit sales when profit and some profit when sales. And so I'll leave that for just a second as well. That looks good. All right. Again, if you need a second, just let me know. So let's put all this in the dashboard here. And we'll do, I have to play around with this to get everything lined up. So we'll do that's primary. Whoops. And you can just double click them and put them on there. They all are in A, and you can actually technically move them around top and bottom, whatever you feel like. Show all the controls. So we got nothing showing because I have them set to NA, but when I select, let's do market, ship mode. Whoops, this needs to be a grid. There we go. And the measure will probably come over here, which is fine. Okay, so here we can change, and actually I can drag the measure here into color as well. Just make it a little more visual. Let's do that. That looks better. So you see some of the relationships are going to be like that, which is fine. This will really come down to you knowing your data. So some of these work together and some don't. Oh, I have marked on there twice. That would be why. So here's how you can kind of cycle through each one. Trying to think of something. Give me 1 second. One thing we can do, and this, again, this is, I don't want to add more tedium here, but one little thing that I'm noting is you see it says dimension 1, 2, and 3, not necessarily the cleanest. So we could create another calculated field to string those out. So let me do, just as an example, so let me duplicate dimension 1 header. I'll edit this. See if this works. This may not work. I'm just thinking here. Dimension 1. Let's call this label. Let's see if this works. Well, where'd it go? Right there. No. Let's see. There's a way to do this, but off the top of my head, I'm not. Oh no. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know there's a way to pass through here. Yeah, it's not gonna work the way I want it. Oh well. How would I pass that through there? I think of a next class. I'll show it. No, I have done that before, but I don't remember how to pass that. Yeah, I'll bring that next class if it comes to me. I'll probably be playing with that for a while because it's going to drive me crazy. But that's all I had to show, though. So you can see the different ways. So we did our basic example sales profit here. We had our top and bottom in. We had our drill down, and then we have our little dynamic grid here. And really, I would just hide these anyway. Users will know their data well enough to know what they're staring at here. It says it over here. But there is, yeah. Then we can. So, all right. So that's all.